All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second installment of Spokane Small Business and Entrepreneur Friday Afternoon Conversations. I am your co host, Jonathan Byron. With me is Rob Reuter, and today with us is John. Tell me how to say your last name.
Kuzichev.
Kuzyshev. Kuzyshev?
Kuzichev.
Kuzyshev.
Yep.
And you're not talking loud enough yet. The camera hasn't picked you up. So say your name again, nice and loud.
John Kuzichev.
There you
Is that
are.
better?
Now you're on the
Sweet.
screen. Okay,
Perfect.
awesome, awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I want to take a quick minute to just go around and introduce ourselves. Many of our viewers know who we are, but a lot of people will be tuning in, don't know who anybody is. So I'm Jonathan Byron. I am a realtor here in Spokane, Washington, and host of a networking group, as well as a couple other fun little side projects that I like to do. My goal for 2025 is to help 100 people buy a house. So I'm looking for buyers, people that want to take advantage of the amazing market that we're in right now for home buyers. So if you're thinking about buying a house or you know someone that is, I would love to chat with you. Rob?
Hey, thanks, Jonathan. Rob Reuter with IDIC Designs, Infinite Diversity and Infinite Combinations. And I am a systems thinker. And I work with small businesses to help them figure out their systems to be more effective and productive with the resources that they have. So I like to come in and sit down, have conversations, and find out if there's a way that I can help you find the right tools and the resources to grow your business.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. John?
John Kuzichev. I'm the owner and chiropractor at Lighthouse Chiropractic Center in Spokane. I am best at helping people transform the pains that they're dealing with in their lives into creating routines and lasting wellness through mainly my chiropractic care, but also just lifestyle education and just empowering people through knowledge.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to move this a little bit closer to you because we had feedback about the microphone last time. So hopefully all of our voices are heard. We want to have a conversation here, but before we jump into the conversation, I want to invite our viewers to come and join us live. We're here every Friday from 3 to 5 with some caveats. We weren't here the Friday after Thanksgiving. Depending on where Christmas falls this year, we may not be here that Friday. So make sure you check in with somebody that you know that regularly attends these. But this table might look small because of the way that AI makes us look like we're really close to each other. But we've got plenty of room here at Action Business Furniture, which is the other thing I want to take a minute to thank them once again for hosting us here. Really, truly great partners and amazing options for furniture. If you need furniture for your office or business location, come check out Action Business Furniture. So, John, you actually mentioned one of the things that we want to talk about, the pain. And in our conversation before we got rolling here, Rob, you were talking about the pain and the problem and how those are different. And I think I've always viewed it as a slightly different approach than how you articulated it, but I really liked your variation, your spin on it. So maybe why don't you kick us off and talk about what you've experienced around this idea of the pain and the problem, and then we'll riff from there.
Okay. Well, my interpretation or my understanding of pain versus problem comes directly from a sales trainer, sales professional by the name of Beck Holland with Flip the Script. And I met her a couple of years ago and really appreciated the way she talks about how to work with clients.
Mm-hmm.
And she is always saying, look, we all hate somebody who's a pushy salesperson. And we know that they're pushy because they're trying to get us to come to a conclusion. And one of the things she teaches is she says if you want to have more influence or more engagement in your area, you need to understand the difference between a pain and a problem. Now, everyone experiences things that are unpleasant, and so they have a pain. However, it doesn't reach a threshold in which somebody is willing to do something about it.
Yeah.
So if I get up in the morning and I go to put my foot down and my knee just kind of goes, oh, it's like, oh boy, that hurts. But the thing I know is that if I take a couple of steps, it's going to go away. And therefore, I'm not looking for somebody to do chiropractic, or I'm not looking for taking a pain pill or something like that. It is simply something that I'm aware of, and yes, it's not pleasant. On the other hand, if something is impacting my future, if it's having an effect that I want to solve, now it's a problem.
Yeah.
And if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, are you experiencing this? And I'm going, yeah, I'm starting to feel it. And the question, they come up back with another question. They say, well, you're aware of what could happen or what long-term impact could experience because of that? And I go, well, no, I'm not aware. And they educate me. Then suddenly I'm going, oh, yeah, I need to do something about that. Now I'm open to a conversation. So that's where I draw that distinction, is like people complain about a lot of things, but I'm listening for that area where I'm really knowledgeable and I can say, well, that's interesting, Jonathan. Are you aware that if you don't do this, here's what's going to happen? And you suddenly go, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Now we have something to talk about because now I've turned it into a problem and not just an inconvenience.
Yeah. One of the things I'll brag on Rob a little bit, I really appreciate about you, Rob, is that you regularly and routinely, in that active listening that you do, you're not just listening for how can I solve a problem, but you're actively listening with the mindset of so many of us other people that you've interacted with, to where if somebody expresses a pain in real estate, you're not like, oh, I bet you I have a system. You're like, no, you need to talk to Jonathan. You know, you just met John here, so like
right.
you probably haven't referred him to anybody, but like you're actively asking him questions about like who's a good collaborator for you, which is an interesting question we might dive off into, is this idea of collaborators rather than just who's your best client. But I love that about you, and I think that's a piece of what you're saying here, is that if it's all me all day, if all I'm doing is listening for real estate triggers, and I'm not looking like, how can I help you today, the person that's in front of me, then I'm missing a whole opportunity to, something that all three of us resonate with is this holistic approach. It's not just what can I do in this moment, but like, how can we be, how was it that you said it earlier, John? You were talking about your ideal collaborator, somebody that can help the whole person get healthier.
Someone live a more holistic life, not just, doesn't necessarily have to be a healthcare professional, but help them to live a more, I don't even remember the word I used earlier, but just a better life.
And I think it was you were meeting with a wealth advisor is what triggered it. And so has nothing to do with the health side, but the financial health, certainly. So we use that word health interchangeably, but yeah, I like that. I think that's an important aspect to this. So what is, because I'll transition here. We talked earlier about my pains right now. We have septic system issues. We have actual physical health issues. We have all these different problems. What, in your guys' observation, what is it that gets somebody to the decision point, right, where it's not just a pain anymore, where it's like, oh, I really should do something about this, but like, I have to take action? And how do we either help them get to that? It sounds like you're talking about, how do we help people get to that point where they're like, oh, no, this is something I need to deal with? Or how do we help them in that moment?
Yeah.
Sure, so that's something that I deal with on a pretty consistent basis. And it really is going to be a different point, I believe, for every person. A lot of people have different levels of tolerance, and at first it's just a pain for them, but the second it starts to affect the quality of the life that they can live is when I think it becomes a big enough problem that they have to start seeking a solution. Like just yesterday, I had a sweet lady came in, and she was dealing with some low back pain, but the real reason that we got to after some conversation she wanted to get rid of the back pain was that so she can thrive and get on the floor and play with her grandkids.
Yep.
Yeah, the back pain is part of the problem, but it's not the thing that it's not the thing that's making her life a little less fun to live.
Yeah.
You know? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Totally.
I actually, it's interesting because I have a little bit of a role play to illustrate that
Sure.
point, because it's not the actual sensation, or it's not the pain that is motivating the change. It is some other goal
Mm-hmm.
that they can't achieve because of that, and it's their awareness of that goal. So if you don't mind, Jonathan, I'm going to role play with you a
Sure.
little bit. We're going to play same scenario twice, and it's the subtlety is the discussion that happens on this. So here's the setup. You're having a headache,
Yeah.
and I'm a doctor, and I'm going to prescribe something to you for your headache.
Yeah.
Okay, and I want you to try to respond, realistically.
Like I actually would.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to,
sure.
to this. Okay, so I'm gonna come in, and I'm gonna say, I'm gonna get it started, and you just woke up with this headache. It hasn't gone away. You're trying to figure out what can I do about it. Okay,
Yeah.
so all right. Hey, Jonathan. Nice to see you today. Well, what'd you come in for? What's been going on?
I got a headache. I woke up this morning, had a headache, and normally if I have something like that, it goes away pretty quickly, but this one's just not going away.
Not going away.
Yeah.
Okay. What have you done your normal things? Have you been trying your normal ways of dealing with headaches?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, normally they go away pretty quickly, but if they don't, I take some Advil and it gets better
okay.
pretty quickly. And I took some Advil. I still have this headache.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's interesting. Yeah, I know how annoying headaches can be, and it really certainly can take away from getting anything done, and you're concentrating on this. So it's not a problem. I actually have something for you. It's a single pill. It's a really amazing pill. It's latest technology. You take this, and not only will this headache go away, but you'll never have headaches again.
Sounds great.
Sounds great. Okay, good. Well, there's only one little issue we have to address. It's going to cost you $100,000 for that pill.
Oof. Yeah. Okay. That's a lot of money there, Rob.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay. You want to pay for it? How do you want to pay for it? Credit or cash or?
Yeah, I don't know. What are our other options? We got some financing options here because, if I'm never going to have a headache again, this is, I could finance this over 30 years like my clients.
Right. Okay. So scene.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So there's one.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go through the same thing, but this time I'm going to put some other information into here. Okay. So a little scenario's a little bit different. Okay. So hey, Jonathan, thanks for coming in. So what are you here for today?
No, yeah, man. I woke up with a headache and it won't go away.
Okay.
Really driving me crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's great you came in. So we did some tests. We had some go things, and so I need to let you know that that headache's very painful. But we've discovered that the reason for the headache is you have a growth in your brain, and it's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse, and things. And eventually, it will claim your life.
Yeah.
Things. Now, the good news is we have a pill. Not only will it make that growth disappear, but you will never experience it or headaches ever again. It's a single pill, one option, and you're done.
Yeah.
So, downside is it's $100,000 for this pill. So, are you interested?
I mean, yeah. If it's fatal, same as before. It's
Right.
it's appealing. Yeah.
It's appealing. Now look at the difference in those two scenarios, and how just the subtle addition of information,
Yeah.
the gap between what you think you have and what you want to do to solve it, versus the awareness of how big of a problem it really is.
Yeah.
That's the thing about the difference between a pain and a problem. Problem is when you suddenly become aware, as your client did, she can't spend time with her grandchildren, and she knows that's her legacy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That time with her grandchildren, even if they will not remember exactly the experience with her, they will still carry that internal memory of that time.
Grandma was with us.
As she was vital. She was living with us, and she wasn't just sitting in a chair all the time. So suddenly, the impact of the problem is what makes it easier to say, I have a solution. It's not free,
Mm-hmm. Right.
but it's going to deal with it and give you the result that you're looking for. That, I think, is really the important thing about our businesses. We need to understand who our ideal customers' metrics are, what they measure themselves in, their happiness, their success, if they're meeting their goals. And the more we understand them, then instead of telling them about our features and all the great
Right.
things we do, we can instead say, here's how I can help.
Yeah.
And that changes the dynamic of the conversation.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. I'd love to dive into motivations and things like that, but something you said just at the end there really kind of for me is like, I heard quite a while ago, and it's always resonated with me, that when we're thinking about our clients and customers and like the people that we're helping, we have a tendency to want to be the hero in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as we can remember that they're the hero of their story, we're the one that helps them accomplish the task that the hero is set out to do. We are the supporting cast. As long as we can keep ourselves in that role, we'll do a lot better than when we come in and try to, I'm gonna save the day for you.
Right.
Which ties into, my wife and I do health and wellness coaching as well, and one of the big things that we talk about in that is it's called the drama triangle. And so you've got the victim, the villain, and the hero. And if we portray ourselves as the victim or the villain or even the hero, we're always going to be stuck in this drama triangle. And you think about people that kind of play the victim. In fact, with you guys earlier today, I was playing the victim. Oh, the world is out to get me. Everything is, this is happening. The world is falling apart. It's very easy to identify ourselves in that victim role and point at all of these villains, all of these things that are the reason that we aren't thriving, and then look for a hero, right? Oh, I just need somebody to come and save the day for me, and everything will be better. And we're just forever in this cycle of waiting for a hero. And then we find somebody that swoops in and says that they'll be the hero. And it's never going to resolve well. But yeah, remembering our role there is an interesting challenge because as humans, we want to be the hero also. We are the hero in our story. And so it's hard not to come into it with I want to save the day.
Well, and think about all of our cultural icons. It's always the super. What are the biggest movies these days? DC, Marvel,
Sure.
comic books come to life on the screen. We're wanting the Superman and the Batman and Spider-Man. We want them to be there, but we have to remember that. That is, as you said, that's a drama triangle. There's a bad guy, there's a victim, and there's the good guy.
Yeah.
And the reality is we create those to help us feel good, but personally, we want to feel good about ourselves. And so it is important. We're the guide beside somebody, not necessarily their hero. We're just there to help them be aware and let them make the decision.
Yep. It's brilliant. John?
I just think where my mind is going is being in the healthcare field, there's just no longevity to that drama triangle that you're talking about. People I get people that come in who played the victim in their own story for a long time, and they've jumped from hero to hero to hero to hero. At some point, we have to become good enough. I feel like we have the responsibility in our own fields as business owners to educate people well enough that they can be, and that they are the hero in their story, and then that's where you create that longevity that I was talking about.
Yeah. That brought back something I was thinking about when Jonathan brought this up, is the fact that this is something I experienced when I started my business, and I lost track of it for a while there, and that was everyone is looking for that hero fix, and so when they have that problem, they don't know what to do about it, especially a business owner. I'm not talking, if you have a medical issue, you go to a doctor. Doctor's supposed to help, with these things. But I'm talking about as business owners, you're not getting the business you want. You're not growing the way you need to. And I was a victim of this, in my own mind. Starting in 2015, I knew I wasn't, after 15 years of business, I hadn't grown. I hadn't really reached any milestones that I wanted to achieve. I mean, essentially, I looked back and said, yeah, I doubled the money that I was making when I was a salaried employee, but I wasn't really making it.
Yeah.
And so what I started doing is the same thing I see so many others do, is I went from hero to hero to hero. Oh, maybe webinars is the, I need an email list, so I'm going to have to go out and I'm going to have to go learn how to do an email list. And I'm going to have to learn this, and I'm going to have to learn that. And every time I went and spent money on another guru's program to fix my business problems, it didn't get me anywhere other than deeper in debt. And I remember one year, I was like, I generated the same invoices 2 years in a row, and I made $10,000 less in the second year.
Yeah.
And I was freaked out. How did I lose $10,000 when I billed the exact same amount?
Yeah.
It was because I spent $10,000 chasing after all these other things.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm trying to be helpful now, is from that experience go and say, look, let's have a conversation. Let's not chase, but let's figure out, what do you need to be successful for yourself, and let me help you achieve it. Not do it for you, but help you figure out what it is.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've observed, and I think this is why I really appreciate this pain and problem distinction, is what we'll see with the health and wellness coaching is, let's say somebody's at a point where they're like, I need to lose 100 pounds, right? And so they get on program and immediately start seeing results. And in a relatively short period of time, they drop 80 pounds. Like, not overnight, not literally, like there's no, but it seems like it, especially because it's such a quick turnaround. It's great, all this stuff. That last 20 pounds all of a sudden becomes the hardest thing in the world. And one of my observations is, I think it's because you get to this point where the pain at I need to lose 100 pounds, the pain or the problem that presents is such that you'll do whatever it takes. And I think that's something, Rob, that you said that really resonated with me, is because all the stuff that I was talking about, this septic tank, all these things, there's been a lot of problems in my residence that I have put off. It's like, I know I need to do this, I know I need to do this, and it's a pain. It's like, whether it just looks not quite as nice as I'd like it to look, or it's potentially a future problem. But this one is like, we had to pump a septic tank. It cost a lot of money, and I know that with every day that goes by, it is getting even more full. And so today, I was Mr. Action. I was just like making phone calls, doing research, ChatGPT this. Like, the pain became a problem for me. It's like, this is something that's going to cost me money. And Mike, come on in and sit down. I'm interrupting myself to introduce. So we've got another guest here. Mr. Mike, how are you?
Órale, vatos.
Mike,
What's up, guys?
AKA Data Mining Mike.
Hey everyone. Hey,
Howdy,
John.
howdy, howdy. That coffee smells good.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome in.
Hey Rob.
Hey, Beck.
friend. John.
Another John.
Awesome.
We've made the introductions. Watch under your seat. There's a wire, so just don't
Okay.
move around too much. But
All right.
we've already introduced ourselves, and we're mid conversation. But we're live on Facebook right now. So
Cool.
to the audience that's out there and the future audience that'll be watching it, give us a quick overview of who you are and what brings you in.
Yeah. So I'm a data enthusiast, data scientist in the entertainment industry. I dabble in all things data and data brokering. If there's anything that involves data or some sort of machine that is making predictions about you or classifications about something, I can be involved in it.
And you have a podcast,
And a podcast.
live meetup AI
Yep.
about AI.
I do.
You meet at the smokestacks, the
Yep, we meet at the steam plant. We're
Steam
doing
plant.
it on the 21st this December, so that's pretty cool. I started putting that on Eventbrite. Yes, and you can find my podcast on Data Mining Mike on YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, and smash that bell. And what else would I mean, I've got numerous things about my life that I continually do.
I think we just want to give people a general
Yeah,
idea. And
yeah.
we'll have everybody's links on the recording, set it up so people can come and find each one of us. So what we're talking about is predominantly what we've been talking about is the difference between pain and a problem. Yeah, that's
Cool.
you're live.
A little slow.
It's gonna pick up everything you say and do and put it
Pain
into the
versus a problem.
pain versus the problem, and I won't totally belabor the point because the audience will have already heard everything, but what we've all observed is that there's a threshold of pain that when you get past that, it becomes a problem. Or another way we've articulated it is that you can have a pain, something that it's like, oh man, like Rob used the example, you get out of bed in the morning and your knee hurts a little bit. But then John talked about a patient of his that she has pain in her back, but the problem, the thing she wants to solve is she can't get down on the ground with her grandkids and play with them. And so that's kind of the distinction we're talking about. And since you're jumping in, I'll let you hop in. What's been your observation with yourself or other people that you know that maybe they are experiencing pain? They have something in their life that's hanging them up a bit, but it's not a big enough problem for them to actually take action and do something about that.
I feel like that's a big story of life, man. We will live and die in our comfort zones. We'll kill the Son of God to stay in our comfort zones. We'll suffer and suffer and suffer the pain before we even consider to change the problem or look inward and say, and just take 100% accountability and say, am I the source of the problem? There's a lot of things can be sourced back to the person, you know, like you gotta take complete accountability.
Sure.
Like, okay, yeah, but I can also see where in his case, in John's case, if you got a patient who's like, I can't get on the ground and play with my kid, but at the same time, it's like, what's your drive to want to play with your kid? At what level do you want to play with your kid? You know, there's like, life is suffering. There's a lot of suffering in life, man.
Well, and so more to the point, because obviously I think we can all agree, and I'm sure everybody watching back home can agree, like we all have our demons, as they would say, our own struggle, our own personal thing, and this topic definitely delves into that. What we're exploring here is more like as providers, as a chiropractor, as a realtor, as a health and wellness coach, as systems, how do we help our clients or our would-be clients, how do we help them bridge that gap from, man, this is something that it's just been bugging me for, I'm in physical therapy right now for a shoulder injury that I had 15 years ago, right? And early on, I just was like too stubborn to admit that I was not young enough anymore to bounce back from it. And then I tried PT and I did it half-heartedly, and on and on and on and on. And so that personal struggle is something I need to overcome, and that's certainly an aspect of this topic. But as a chiropractor, or as somebody that maybe would refer, maybe you're talking to me and you're talking about this pain that you have in your back, and I'm like, just go see John. He can help you. How do we help our friends, our neighbors, our family? And this is particularly poignant around the holiday times, right? You go to dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, you go to Christmas holiday festivities, you're with people you care about, and they're talking about their pain, and like, you know what the solution is. How do you help somebody else to get from the point where they're stuck in that drama? We talk about drama triangle, which is victim, villain, and hero, right? And you're always blaming the victim, you're always looking for the hero, you're always the victim. How do you help somebody that's in that? How do you help them take a step out of it? That's the big question I think we're circling around right now.
Yes. Hope.
Ooh, I like
Hope.
it.
So Napoleon once said, a leader is a dealer in hope. There's a reason that little man could get a bunch of young people to rally around him, march through the cold, and die. Because he was able to see through that triangle of abuse and say, the best way to beat it is to not do it. Is I don't define myself by the failures of others that raised me. I don't define myself by my previous failures. I don't. That's one way. And how good are you in inspiring in others and eager to want? That's what a leader is. A leader is a dealer in hope. And hope comes in many forms and strains. So your judgment, justice, decisiveness, tact, initiative, dependability, unselfishness, loyalty, these are all variables that affect the potency of your strain of hope. And when you have somebody who is suffering, the different, like a drug addict, how do you get a drug addict who's physically and mentally addicted to a substance to want to quit? It is through the hope that there is nothing else they can do except this one act, which is get sober. That's just one example. So hope, and then when you add vanity, hope and vanity, that's a hell of a drug combination. That really motivates people. I've been learning that in the media industry.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting because vanity is something that
It's a sin.
we don't like to look at that as a good thing, but there is definitely an aspect. Even coming here, and I was whining to these guys off camera earlier about all of my woes, and you put a camera in front of me, and all of a sudden everything's just. I mean, I'm being transparent. I do, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. But no, it's like the idea of how do I appear to the public is an aspect, and I would say that you're probably spot on that somebody that's addicted to drugs or alcohol or anything that's like really truly oppressing them, the idea that they are, I mean, obviously a big aspect of the addiction is that they're letting someone down and they're not secure in themselves, but that desire to present well, that's an interesting one that I'm going to have to spend some more time thinking about. John?
No thoughts?
Where does that land for you with what you do, with how you help people?
Vanity's a new one for me to consider, but definitely, I was talking about earlier, I don't remember if it was on camera or off camera, but there's a tolerance, so
Yeah.
to some people, back pain could be the end of their world the second they start to feel it. To some people, it could be once all of their spine is degenerated and their discs are degenerated and they literally can't move because their body won't let them. That could be their tolerance. So
Interesting.
there is,
Yeah.
and I've also found with patients that there is a different time for every single person, and I could have a conversation right now with someone about their pain or their problem and give them all the right information, ask all the right questions in the world, but it's just not the right time for them.
Yeah.
And I've had that happen, and then I thought it was the right time, but it wasn't. But then they circle back around and at their right time.
Yeah.
So being like unattached from the solutions you offer to people.
Ooh, yeah. That is definitely important.
And that's the difficult thing is being unattached, because we are so convinced that we have it figured out, and the things I like this because it gets at that topic, in marketing and sales is often, you gotta overcome objections. And somebody I subscribe to, Keenan, he actually says, if there are objections, you haven't actually helped them find the impact of that. And so, yes, they're gonna give you objections. It's, as you say, it's not the right time. Well, it's because what you're offering has not been demonstrated against the impact. Now, when they realize how big that impact is, really, then they may come back to you because you were at least willing to listen and give them some hope, in that expectation. But as Keenan talks about in his books, it's like if they're giving you objections, it's because they don't see enough benefit between what they think that is the impact versus what you're asking of them.
Yeah, and I like the way that a lot of this came up was the conversation we were having beforehand, which we need to be careful that we don't oversell the conversation beforehand. Everybody's going to want to come to that conversation. But we were talking about, invitational and inviting people in, and how we all have sort of an ickiness around, like, whatever it is. Like if Mike, if I was talking to you and I was like, hey man, you really need to lose weight, right? Like, it's like, really? Like, you just want to like throw up a couple of degradatory signs. Or we talked about even like inviting people to church, right? Like, it's like, if you have somebody that is already there, that they're looking for a body, a community, somebody that they can be involved in, then you might hit it well. But if it's somebody that's like, man, I don't want to have anything to do with that, that's a whole can. And so I think, Rob, you were the one that introduced the idea of, we don't go in looking for the referral. We don't go in asking for business. We go in with curiosity. We go in with questions. And, what is that pain point? Which the pain point, and I loved your description of it. You said, if there's a pain, you don't push on the pain, right? That's just going to be more painful. If there's a pain, you explore it. Why is that painful? What is the problem that is causing that pain?
Yeah.
Interestingly, I'm touching my arm, which this is the arm that needs the physical therapy.
Right.
But, the problem is up here, and I'll feel pain down in my elbow, right? And if I'm trying to fix the pain in my elbow, but not addressing the issue up here with the nerves, then you're just hurting me,
Right.
and unnecessarily. And so I think that in combination with the idea of offering hope, and something that we've been talking about without actually saying, that sort of empathy, that there's a word here that I'm looking for that is, I'm failing to get to it, but it's that sense of seeing and hearing somebody rather than dismissing, placating, or trying to fix their problem. And it kind of comes out like this, where it's like, if you said, man, I'm just really frustrated because, and you go on to describe this ridiculous scenario that's clearly your fault, right? Like, I was just so frustrated, like every time I come up to a red light, everybody in front of me stops. Yeah, but rather than like dismissing that or trying to solve the problem, being like, man, I can see how that would be frustrating. Validating, that's the word I'm looking for. Is validating. And it's like, before we jump in and try to solve problems or fix things, like validating, man, that just sounds rough. Sounds like you're in a lot of pain. Sounds like you've been in, and I think that collectively, socially, we're in an era where we're all kind of grasping this together, because I've had conversations lately where people are validating me, and either I just was never aware of it before, or it's actually like happening. I'm like, I know what you're doing. And I appreciate it. That feels good. I just needed to be heard right now. And it's like, all of a sudden, like, all of that just it just drains out. And it's like, okay, now I can switch over to my thinking brain, because you've seen and heard that stuff that was like all jumbled up. So, and then in that process, if you can offer me hope, yeah,
Good
Yeah.
points.
it's good.
Those are
Yeah, I'm
really-
trying to remember. I for some reason I want to attach this to Avatar, but that phrase, "I see you," or "I've been seen."
Yeah,
That's what we want. We want to be seen. We don't want to be, getting back to the issue, why do people respond to hope? Because if they're isolated, it's because they are separated from everyone. So anyone who comes along and gives them this sense of belonging, that's their hope, and then points them in a direction and gives them a mission, then they will do whatever it takes. Now, I'm not as comfortable with doing it for people, but I really enjoy opening up and having people respond that now they, after talking with me, now they know what they need to do, and they're committed to doing it for themselves.
Yeah. That's always a good thing.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So again, like we were talking earlier, I'm not their hero. I'm the guide that helps them be the hero in their own story
Yep.
that they will be able to carry on into the future.
That's awesome. John, you were about to say something.
I was just going to say that there's a reason the number one rule in sales, you mentioned sales a lot, is to always be in agreement. It's not just that you want to kiss up to someone, it's that people are a lot more open and willing and receptive to your guidance when you are in agreement with them.
Yeah. That word agreement makes me think of a great book, or a series of books, really, the Four Agreements. It's a fantastic book, and that would take the conversation in a direction that I think we will probably steer it back in. And actually, this is a good opportunity to segue. I asked people to comment questions or observations, and John Hansman, I promised to shout out to anybody that did. John Hansman said, "Wind down time is the best time to double down on growth." And so in the description for this, I put in there that we were going to be talking about the pain and the problem, but also we talked about discussing what to do with your business, how to run your business this time of year. December, it's the holidays, people are either on vacation or they're going to holiday events. My wife and I, we've had to say no to more things than I would ever want to say no to, because we have so many things on our schedule and on our calendar and all of that stuff. So what are the things that we as business owners, what are the things that we can do during this time? And I think, Rob, you were even talking about not necessarily yourself, but just people in especially a sales type environment. They're trying to make sales calls, they're trying to make service calls, and the decision maker is not available. And it's like, well, when are they available? Well, let's look at January. And definitely, I would say for myself, I am scheduling appointments in the next couple of weeks, but for the most part, just about anything now is all being pushed to January. So what are those things this time of year that we can be doing as business owners to take advantage of this, not necessarily slow season, because it feels like it's faster paced than ever, but during this season, what are some things we can do? And again, shouting out John Hansman, thanks for jumping in with wind down time is the best time to double down on growth. So, certainly we can think of activities that we can be doing. We talked about, business planning, writing out strategies, a lot of that stuff that you don't have time to do when you're servicing and doing all these things, being intentional to do that. What are some other things that you guys embrace doing at this time of year?
Education.
Good.
Educate yourself.
Yeah.
I take those downtimes as a time to be a sponge and just absorb as much as you can to know what's going to be coming up, so you can be ahead of the curve and even more ahead of whatever that is last year, setting some goals.
That's awesome.
Continuous education.
On the education subject, we're not going to jump into this right now, but there's definitely some things that I've been reading about with China and just some of these advances in AI and technology and things like that. And so, yeah, again, not to get into any of it now, but there's definitely a lot of topics and fields that if you'll exercise a little curiosity, do a little homework, find some education material, or just engage in conversations with people that are deeply knowledgeable about that area, this is a great season to do that.
So one of the things as I was talking earlier about, I didn't really start focusing on learning marketing so much until 2015, but I actually did do marketing. For that, I do a lot of annual kind of contract work where it's just a retainer system. I don't have to go and sell a project. They just keep paying me and things. So, and I'm virtual, you know, I mean, we went through the pandemic and everybody else got to go home. I have always been home. So it was no different for me. But one of the things that December is a great time to do is to set up your projections for the next year like you're doing, but to go to your existing customers and just have a touch point with them. So
right.
what I do is, in my family, I inherited my grandmother's fudge recipe and my mother's almond roca recipe, and I would make fudge and almond roca, and it was an excuse every December to go have a one-on-one conversation with a client.
That's great.
And say, hey, let's where have we been? How, you know, what do we get accomplished, and what do you want to do next year? What is that goal
Nice.
that you have?
That's really good.
I think I've been in business for going on 4 years now, so always learning and always growing. I always found myself defaulting to frustration in the slow time, so I think the first thing I do is to practice gratefulness and mindfulness for like people that have gotten me to where we are in business. But I have found myself recently going to refine systems because you had it right at the end of 2023, things have changed, things have got, you can always do something better. I'm finding myself just refining, especially because right now I'm going through the process of documenting my systems more systematically. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I think that is, there's no shortage of things that we can do. And I like that, even just that shift to talking about mindset stuff, because at this time of year, you're evaluating either you had a great year, you didn't have a good year, you had a great year, but now things are slowing down and you're getting into panic mode of like, will they ever recover? Like any number of things that, especially for our audience that's tuning in, any number of emotions and feelings, and it's easy to let those emotions kind of take the wheel and drive, so to speak. I think that Incubus quote. It's just easy to go too far in one direction or the other. Because the other thing we can do with emotions, and I think as a bunch of guys sitting around a table, we can all identify with that tendency to push feelings down and just say, I'm going to power through and I'm going to ignore those feelings, which, as we're discovering as a whole, that's an unproductive, unhealthy, long-term practice to do. The other thing we can do is let our emotions get the better of us, and just all of a sudden it's like, I'm terrible at life, I give up, I quit, and all of those big feelings become counterproductive. And so finding that rhythm of, okay, I'm having big feelings, I'm going to find trusted people that I can share these with, I'm going to be vulnerable with the correct audience, and I'm going to emphasize that. Be careful what audience you do that with. I jokingly, like as a realtor, I'm showing a house to somebody. If I start just melting down about the economy and how awful things are, and how or how terrible my house is right now, like, oh my gosh, home ownership is the worst. It's like, I'm probably not going to make that sale. That's not the right audience, right? But having that outlet, having that place where you can express what's going on and be vulnerable and be real, and then take all of that and turn it into productive, like, okay, reality at the end of the day is this is, I enjoy this too much. I love what I do too much. I love the people that I serve too much to not do this anymore. So now let's figure out what's the problem that's causing this pain and who can help me solve it. And depending on what it is, if it's physical pain that a chiropractor can help with, we've got a guy. If it's, systems, we've got people that know systems, and we can work with that. I don't know that the pain you're facing is buying or selling a house, but if that's it, I can help with that. But we're a big network, this SSBE, Spokane Small Business and Entrepreneurs. So, and I've seen it where people, will hop on and say, hey, I'm having this issue, and there's people here that want to help. So, jump in with that. One of the things we really want to do is education. And so this is a blanket invite. If you have a topic that you're passionate about and you want to present and share to the group, we'd love to give you the platform and the ability to do that. And on the flip side of that, if you're saying, hey, December's my month to lean into education, what are the things you're curious about? What do you need to do this month to prepare yourself for 2025? And I think that's something, let's end on that note, because we're getting kind of close to the end of the hour here, and I like to try to wrap things up. I think an hour is a really good length. So I think I mentioned at the beginning, my goal for 2025 is to help 100 people buy a house. So I'm leaning into that. I'm figuring out the metrics of how that would work and what that would look like. But let's just here in the room, let's talk about what are your projections, goals, what do you want to do in 2025? And the encouragement and the invite to those listening is to do the same thing. Evaluate what does next year look like. So I know I'm putting you guys on the spot, but I can see the wheels turning. So it doesn't have to be polished and professional. But what are you targeting for 2025? What's your big ambition?
I trying to broker a big data set. I'm trying to win government contracts. Trying to get to 100 podcast guests because I failed this year. But that's okay. And there's some other little sidebar things. I always line them up and I go through it at the end of the year, see which ones I actually accomplished. I only accomplished like 2 out of 10 for this year.
Okay,
But hey,
two goals.
Yeah, 20% improvement.
That and it's two goals is better than 0 goals.
Yeah.
And any number of Zig Ziglar quotes, but like failing to plan is planning to fail, like all this stuff. You put stuff in front of you, and transparently helping 100 people buy a house next year. If I hit 20% of that,
That'd be really
it's a good year.
good.
It's a good
Yeah.
year. So like it's not a goal that that's a goal that I've set intentionally high. So if you set for yourself 10 goals and that was insane. We're used to, and I'm going to start ranting here, so I'll try to keep this really brief. But we're accustomed to this school system we grew up in, where 100% is perfect, 90% is an A, 80% is a B, and then you fail anything below 60%, whatever the numbers were when you were growing up, or what the numbers are now. But so we look at that, and 20% feels like a failure because of this programming. But you got to get rid of the other 80%. You got to look at, you accomplished 2 goals that you set for yourself. It's awesome. So,
Yeah.
way to go on that. And I'm personally invested. Everything you said, I'm personally invested in getting you to 100 guests this year.
Well, thank you.
So
I appreciate
let's-
that.
let's work on that
Absolutely.
together.
Let's do that.
That fist bump is going to look awesome with the way AI did that. So great. I love that.
There it is. Yep. So I'm ending the year on a really big rush. I mean, I've landed. First, I took on the responsibility for a big project and was able to deliver on time and according to plan. Where I discovered later, the previous leader had said it can't be done, it's impossible, never going to work, and I was able to step in and get it done. And at the same time, also landed a new client in a whole new field with a new collaborator. So my goals for 2025 is really to continue, and a lot of it is going to be around building more collaborative projects, because I really do believe in small business community, and I realize that certainly there's a lot of dollars in big companies, but I want to help more small businesses achieve a stable living wage that they can build on. So I'm going to say I'd like to help 25 small business owners find that avenue, whether it's they need marketing, whether it's they need systems, whether or not they need, just somebody cheering them on, saying, okay, you got it, here's the next step, things like that. So.
Awesome. I like it. And I think that's what excited me about the 100 podcast guests is it's definable. It's and whether you hit it or not isn't necessarily, it's like, here's a target, let's work towards it. And so without getting into it in this particular episode, we'll call this an episode, maybe that's something we'll dive into, and even maybe it would be a great topic for our next meeting is how do we make SMART goals, and maybe we'll do that together. But
Yeah.
I love it. So 25 small business owners in 2025.
Yep.
It's even got a nice
Getting-
little
getting
25
them-
or 25.
yeah.
Getting them rock solid and on their way to whatever their dream is.
I like it. I like it. And we're already in talks. Maybe I'll be one of your first for 2025. So very good. John?
I come around to think about it. There are a few that surface. I'd like to connect with and start to be able to help and serve 200 people next year, 200 new people,
Awesome.
which is a pretty ambitious goal for the volume that I've been at. I'd also like to turn a little bit more externally in my focus of my practice. So last few years my head's just been down. I've been serving the people that come in. I'd like to start like speaking externally at whether it be like lunch talks or something at a business to just create awareness and more education around health and wellness, because I have found more often than not with the people that I connect with, they just basic stuff about their health that would just change their life they're just not aware of, and it's no fault of their own, they just haven't been given that information. So I just want to start to educate more in Spokane and the community.
That's awesome. I love that. And that resonates with me. We've already talked. I think that it's such an interesting, that's the second part of that, the education, and even talking about, here in the month of December, I'd be curious, I'd love to see more comments in the, or maybe create a poll or something like that. But like, when you hear education, right, like what goes through your mind? Because I find that I love the education. I love learning. But like most of the time, like if you invited me to an event where I was going to learn something, like there's almost this instinctive, like, no, I don't want to go. Right? Like there's just this like, and even as I'm saying this, I'm thinking of like an observation that I had probably about a year ago now. So I'm driving, I'm with my son and my daughter, and to paint the picture, my son at the time, he's 12, 13, my daughter's 5, 6 years old. And so she's learning different speech patterns and talking like a 7-year-old. And we're driving, and we drive past some geese. And she points them out, and she says, I don't remember if it was gooses or geese. I think it's gooses. And my son, who's, well advanced, he corrects her. He says, it's geese. And she's like, no, it's not. And they have this whole interaction, and she gets like upset. And it hit me, and I coined this phrase, and maybe somebody has said it before, but education is traumatic. In order for us to learn something, we have to go through this traumatic process of it's almost a death. It's like what I thought I knew, and it's not that I thought I knew it, it's I knew I knew it. I know for sure, Isabella, my daughter, she knew that those things flying through the air were gooses. Because it's a goose, and then you put an S on the end of a word, and now it's gooses. So it's like, she knew that. That wasn't like, I think I know this, like she knew it. And somebody was introducing like, everything you know is wrong, right? And I'm exaggerating, but that's how it feels. And so like, when you said education, like I had this like bifurcated, because I love learning new things. Like I thrive on learning new things. And at the same time, like sitting down and watching a training or a seminar, or even going to a conference where I can learn, like there's this almost allergic reaction to like, oh, I don't want to go do that. And you go and you learn, and you come away and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know these things. But like I said, I was about to rant, so rant over. And we're coming up right on the end of the hour, so closing thoughts?
Well, I was picking up on what you were saying there. I think the usual challenge of education is you do have to let go of this idea that you know everything, that you already know it.
Right.
And you have to be open to. On the other hand, in defense of most of those programs, they tend to go over things without really explaining the principles on which they're based. They just tell you the results and don't actually show you the model, how you get there. And that's the important thing about educating, is you have to be willing to learn, open to the idea that it might not work the way you want. This is a scientific this is the root of science, is you posit an idea, and then you create an experiment to test whether or not it works that way.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, then you go back and you reevaluate. What else do I need to know? So it's a very valid rant and something we should do. In the meantime, just December's here. Nights come early. It's a good time to change up routines.
Yeah.
I'm going to bed earlier and getting up earlier because I can work quiet,
Mm.
and get some good thought work done first thing in the morning before business takes off. So,
I like it. John, closing thoughts?
Not necessarily on the conversation we had, just gratitude to be here today and have a conversation.
Yeah, appreciate having you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Mike?
Hey, it's good to be here. Good to get goals up, stay educated, go through transformational experiences. Will change you.
Now, I'm going to let you wrap it. I'm going to maybe have like a little closing thought, but I'm going to let you end it with that whole like smash the bell.
Oh,
or whatever
yeah.
that thing was. So, I'm going to kind of encapsulate what we've all said. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you everybody that was here. I'm going to tag everybody that was a part of this conversation and put links. We will put this on YouTube so that you can rewatch it if you want to see that. We always would love to have you be here at the table. So if you watch this and you're like, man, I'd love to be a part of that conversation in person, love to have you. We do start at 3:00, Action Business Furniture. Once again, shout out to Joe and Rick and all the folks down here at Action Business Furniture. Come give them a peep. We'll tag them as well. And Mike, take us out.
Yeah, hey everybody in the audience, I'm sure you found that valuable, and because of that, you should like this. Remember, subscribing costs you nothing, it hurts you nothing, but it would mean the world to us. Be sure to subscribe, share this, because sharing is caring, and smash that bell for more amazing business updates. Bye.